All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to yoga. I'm Trish. We're going to do a nice little flow together this morning. So grab your mat, grab whatever you need. Make sure you've got lots of space around you. And let's start off this morning in tabletop just to mobilize the spine. So let's come up onto all fours and just bringing your wrist underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, hands are shoulder width apart, knees and feet are hip width apart. As we inhale, let's lengthen from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. And then as you exhale, start to roll the tailbone under, belly to the spine, spine to the ceiling, opening up through the backs of the shoulders, rolling the chin in towards the throat, and pointing the crown of the head towards the mat. As we inhale, starting to widen through hips and collarbones, belly hugs into the spine as we start to reach the heart forward, shoulders away from the ears, and maybe starting to draw that chin and the eye gaze to the sky if the neck allows. So moving with the breath. As we exhale, rounding the spine as we lift up through the belly and the chest, getting a nice opening through the back of the body. And then as we inhale, lengthening and arching, keeping the belly hugging into the spine as we start to open up through the front, maybe squeezing through the backs of the shoulder blades. And just going that little bit deeper with each breath. Starting to feel that articulation of the spine, maybe starting to imagine that your spine is like a bike chain. So from the base of the spine, you want to feel one link move, then the next and the next and the next, all the way up to the crown of the head. Let's do a couple more here. And after your next exhalation, we're going to return back into a neutral spine, coming into a nice straight flat back, neither curled under nor arched. Keep the knees on the mat and then just gently circle the hips a few times in one direction. And then gently back the other way. And then make a figure eight with the hips, making an infinity symbol. And then gently back the other way. And then keeping the tip of your tongue on the roof of the mouth behind the two front teeth. Let's just come into a little bit of free form movement. So let's start to feel the energy. This is the spine, moving that up through your hips, your lower back, the middle back, side body, maybe starting to make little spirals or little figure eights. And then bring that movement up into your upper back, your chest and your shoulders, maybe making little spirals or figure eights. Through the shoulders, maybe knitting or kneading through them, keeping the core active. And from the shoulders, bring that energy up through your neck and throat, keeping the tip of the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth behind the two front teeth, so your energy circuit's connected. And then from the neck and throat, bringing it all the way up into your third eye in between the two hemispheres of the brain, and then gently start to spiral and draw that energy back down into the spot 3 fingers below your belly button, the center point of your body. When your energy is back in that center point, let's come into child's pose. So bring the big toes together and then drawing the bum back towards the heels and then resting the forehead on the ground so the hips can come up a little bit if the forehead doesn't touch. And then just widening out across the hips, widening out across the back as we inhale. As we exhale, just softening through the hips, the belly and the chest, and just melting down a little bit further. Widening the hips, maybe just gently swaying the hips from side to side and getting a nice stretch out across the back as we start to melt the bum back towards the heels. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here, just allowing the breath and energy to return to normal. Deepening the breath. And then from here, keeping the knees out wide, or if your knees together, bring them out wide. Ground back into your right hip, belly hugs in, walk across towards the left. And then as you exhale, melting down, getting a nice stretch across that right side of your back. Keep widening out across the hip crease, keeping the hips level. And then let's lift up, walk the hands across to the second side. Drawing the belly in, pushing back into the left hip this time. And as we exhale, melting down, bringing the belly to the thigh. Nose towards the knee. Maybe let's come back to center, and then coming back into child's pose. From here, we're going to start to grip your hands into the mat, hands are shoulder width apart, and then rolling the tailbone under. Start to round yourself forwards until your shoulders are over the wrists, coming into planking on your knees. Tuck your toes under, inhale. As we exhale, we're going to lift the heels, bend the knees, and slide ourselves up into down dog. So coming up into our first down dog of the morning, and keeping all the weight pushing back into the hips. So if the hamstrings are tight, lift your heels as high as you can, bend your knees, and fold your belly towards the thighs. So keeping the hip crease nice and active, pushing the weight of the hips and the tops of the thigh bones back towards the wall behind you. And just feeling that really nice stretch out across our back. Keeping the weight in the hips. And then maybe just gently shaking the head from side to side, nodding it up and down, releasing the neck. Eye gaze towards the belly or in between the knees so the back of the neck is nice and long. Keep pushing all the weight back in towards the hips. And then let's gently walk the legs out. So as we inhale, maybe starting to bend the knee, bring the thigh to the torso, feeling the stretch out through the arch of the foot. As you exhale, keep pushing the weight of the hip back towards the wall behind you as you lengthen the heel towards the mat. Doesn't matter if the heels don't touch, and just feeling that nice opening through the hamstrings, backs of the knees, stretching out through your calves, Achilles, and opening through the soles of the feet. All right, let's take a couple more breaths here. Keep drawing the lower ribs back towards the hips. So all the weight's pushing back into the hips, belly to thighs. And then let's lift up onto our toes and then rolling the spine forwards. Come into plank, come onto your knees if you need to. So lengthening out from your knees or your toes all the way out to the crown of the head. Come down, knees, chest and chin if you like. Shoulders in their sockets, belly hugs in. Exhaling down and then inhale through into your back bend. Sphinx baby cobra up dog. Keep lengthening up through the insides of your legs as you inhale. Breathing into the heart, reaching the heart forward. As you exhale, widen the shoulders, sliding the shoulders down the back. Keep rolling the tailbone under. TBA rolls back. Belly hugs in towards the spine. Breathing into the heart here. Make sure we're not feeling any crunching through the lower back. Exhale, roll the chin to the throat and fold yourself back into down dog. Let's take a couple of nice deep breaths here, stretching out across your back. And continuing to walk out through the legs. Keep widening out across your hip crease. And we're lifting up through the inner thighs, so it's helping us to square our hips a little bit further. All right, and let's do another flow. So coming up onto your knees, rolling yourself forwards into plank. And then come through knees, chest and chin or through your plank. Belly hugs in, exhaling down. Inhaling through, opening the heart. Exhale, roll the chin to the throat and fall back into down dog. Stretching out here. All right, let's just walk the feet in a little bit, and then we just come into two-legged dog with three-legged dog, just to feel the hips, and then we're going to come down into tabletop. So keeping all the weight back in the hips. If you need to come up onto your toes, bend the knees so that all the weight's pushing back into that hip crease. Take your left leg and inhale, extend that left foot up and come with a square hip. So start to lift up through the inner thigh, rolling down through the outer hip and just extending that foot back. So you can either point the toes or push out through the toes, push out through the ball of your foot, or push out through the heel of your foot. Keep squaring that hip. And then from here, you can either keep that foot floating or come through your flow as we come forwards, coming down, flowing through, opening the heart. And then let's exhale back into down dog. So if you're in tabletop, you can do that as well. So from here, you can keep your foot floating, keeping that square hip, and then come through your knees, chest and chin. Okay, so let's roll back into down dog or tabletop, coming into your second side. So walk the feet in a little bit, take the other leg up, come onto the toes of your other foot if you're in dog. And so we want to try to keep the hips level. So notice how that right hip's going to want to lift. So we're lifting up through the, widening out through the hip crease, rolling up through the inner thigh and rolling down through the outer hip. And we're feeling the stretch as well. And then from here, option to stay here or return the foot to the ground as we come forwards and come through. Low, opening the heart, and then exhale, rolling back into down dog. So try to make it a nice fluid motion when you fall back into dog. All right, let's come forwards now back onto our hands and knees. Come back into tabletop. And then from here, I want you to keep the core nice and active. So same as we've been rolling down through the outer hip, lifting out through the inner thigh. And I want you to shift your weight onto your right side and take your left foot back. Okay, now keeping that weight there, we're going to float the same side hand. So all the weight's on the right side and we're floating the left foot and the left hand. Keep the core active. The weight is going to go onto one side, so we're going to try to keep everything level. And then releasing the hand, releasing the foot. Shift the weight onto the other side. Now we're just going to go same side, hand and foot. So your right leg is back this time. And then shifting the weight onto the left. And then taking the left hand out. So keep drawing the ribs towards the hips. Contraction through your core and abdominal area. We're keeping that length from the toes all the way out to the fingertips. Okay, exhale, release the hand, release the foot. Sway the hips a little bit from side to side, circling, and then back the other way. Maybe just bring the hips and the shoulders to one side, looking to the same side, so we're getting a little squeeze through that side. And then side, so bring the hips and the shoulders to the side and then to the same side and looking over that same shoulder. Inside, and one more on each side. Side. All right, come back to center. Let's do opposite hand and leg now. So we're going to go, which side did we start with? We started with our left leg and this time we're doing right hand. So we're going opposite hand and foot. So when we're opposite, makes it a little bit easier for us to balance, but feel how now the body wants to twist. So I want you to start to draw the ribs to the hips, squaring through the torso, and feel everything pulling back in and squaring. Okay, from here, we're lengthening out as we exhale. We're going to round, chin to throat, elbow to knee. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale, bring it to a cactus. So the knee comes to 90 degrees like a frog. Elbow comes to cactus by the shoulder. Inhale, extend. Exhale, squeeze the glutes, bend your back knee, tap the foot, or just reach for it. Okay, inhale, lengthen out into your pointer. Exhale, round and curl, elbow to knee, lifting through the core. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale to 90. Lifting through that hip. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, squeeze the glutes, tap the back foot. One more here. Inhale, lengthen. So we're just tapping it, yep, and then we release. Exhale, round. Chin to throat, elbow to knee. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale to 90. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bend the back foot, tap the back, bend the back knee, tap the back foot. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Release the hands, step your foot in between the hands. So we're going to do a nice little hip flossing sequence. Okay, from here, with the foot in between the hands, feel free to grab your blocks if you like. So, and then from here, we're just going to shift the weight forwards onto the back kneecaps, so we're not crunching into the knee joint. And then lifting out of the hips, we're just gently drawing the hips back and forth. So you're just starting to feel a very gentle stretch and some somatic exploration through that hip, through the back of that leg. Checking in with noticing how it's feeling. Perhaps every time that we slide the hips back, we feel a little bit more open and come a little bit further. Okay, from here, let's come into a low lunge just to stretch the hip flexors. So making sure it's on the kneecap. Inhale the arms up, and then shoulders sliding away from the ears. Okay, so reaching the fingertips towards the sky, we're starting to slide the hips forwards. As you slide the hips forwards, you should feel a stretch through your hip flexors on that right side. Relax your shoulders down away from the ears. Maybe bring your hands into cactus arms if the shoulders are tight. Extending out through the elbows. All right, let's do 3 breaths here. So as we inhale, we're going to squeeze the glutes, push into the big toe pad of the front foot, squeezing your glutes, engage your quads so that the legs are active. And we're going to start to lift up through the back of the heart, squeezing through the backs of your shoulder blades. As you inhale, keep lifting the heart upwards. As you exhale, we're going to start to round forwards, bring the elbows together, forearms together, palms together as we start to reach the elbows towards the belly button and rolling the chin to the throat. Inhale and open, lifting the back of the heart. Exhale and round. And one more. Inhale and open. Exhale and round. Okay, inhale and open. Take the arms all the way up. Option for a low lunge here. Soak into a little back bend if it feels good. You can bring the hands together, or you can stay with the cactus arms and come back into this variation. You can take the hands together and maybe reaching the hands up and back into a little pointer. Keep lifting out of the hips, belly hugging into the spine. Inhale back up, and then from here, I'm going to take your left hand down by the hip, reaching up, shoulders away from the ears. Imagine you're standing in between 2 planes of glass, and then we're going to gently start to reach across towards the left side. So you're going to feel that really nice opening, once again, through the hip flexors here. Feel that from the hip, opening up through the sideways, through your ribs, reach that top elbow upwards. All right, inhale back up, exhale, release, and come forwards again. So from here, let's just take a few more gentle little swivels back and forth. Okay, and then let's come into your half Hanuman. So you can rest your hands on your blocks, or you can rest your hand on your mat. And then we're stacking that hip over the back heel, over the back knee, and then melting down. Stay here for 3 breaths. So breathing into the back of that left leg. As you inhale, as you exhale, just softening. Maybe starting to lift up through the toes and the balls of the feet. So you're just extending that stretch up through the calf as well. Otherwise, you can have the toes down. Okay, come back up now. And then from here, so your hands are on either side. We're going to bring the hands into the inside of the foot, and we're heel toeing our foot out into lizard. And so once again, hands can be on the mat or they can be on the blocks, and then lifting out of the hips. So we're just changing the angle of our hip now, and we're pushing into the big toe pad. That foot, the front foot is on a 45-degree angle, and we're just circling the hips once again. So keeping the weight in the hips and in the core. So we're lifting, there's no weight in the pelvis, and we're just gently exploring some little somatic movements and little circles, side to side movements, back and forth, and just feeling into it. Okay, if it's comfortable, maybe you can drop a little bit lower onto the forearms. You can bring your forearms onto blocks as well, otherwise staying on the forearms. And keep opening that hip out to the side, so we're lifting out of the hips, squeezing the glutes and winding that thigh and that knee out. Okay, go down, come back up, and then from here, let's tuck the ground into your big toe at the front, lift your back knee, and then just sway your hips back and forth, releasing the psoas here. Okay, bring that knee back down. Let's flip into Wild Thing or Flip Dog. So option 1, we stay on that back knee. We take this leg around, and then we swivel on the knee, and then bring that shin behind you. Bring your toes down, lift out of the hip, lift out of the shoulder, and reach it out. So we're just getting a really nice stretch out through that hip. And then let's exhale, bring the hand back down, knee back down. Let's inhale, arch the spine. Exhale, round. And then from here, option 2, come back through down dog in a flow, or you can stay here and then come through your flow here, or you can come back into down dog and then coming through your flow. Let's sneak in our back bend, keeping the tailbone rolling under, lifting up through the insides of your legs, reaching the heart forwards, breathing into the heart, keep squeezing through the backs of your shoulder blades, maybe pushing the hands or the elbows into the mat and drawing them back towards the hips. So you're feeling that squeezing through the kidneys and adrenals at the back. Exhale, roll yourself back into down dog. Take a few breaths. Stretch out across the back. Walking out through the legs, and then just bring your awareness into your hips as well. Check in with how one hip is feeling compared to the other one. Maybe we feel a little bit more spacious around our left hip, widening out across your hip crease. Just breathing into it. Okay, when you're ready, let's come back down. See the second side, coming back into tabletop. So we'll start with the same side balance, and then we will go onto the second, onto opposite sides. So from here, let's shift our weight onto the left side. Take your right leg back, and then take your right hand out. So notice all the little refinements your body has to do to counterbalance, because your body, all your weight's on one side. So you're shifting across, and then maybe drawing that right hip and shoulder down a little bit to try to keep the body square. All right, hand comes down, knee comes down, other side. So we're shifting the weight onto the other side. My mat's got all these little lines in it, so it's a little bit more challenging. And then extending the other hand, extending the other foot. Find that balance. Keep lengthening out through the fingers and the toes, the fingers to the toes, and then keep squaring the hip because that's that wants to lift. Exhale, release. Come back to center, and let's do the second side. So this time we're taking our right foot, and left hand. Sorry, your left hand and right foot. Second side, reaching it out into a pointer, engaging through the core so that everything is nice and stable. Keep rolling up through that inner thigh, rolling down through the outer hip of that extended foot. Keep the hips level. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, let's round and curl. So bringing the chin to the throat, rounding the back, elbow to knee. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale, bring it out to 90 degrees. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, squeeze the glutes, tap your back foot. So hand to foot at the back into a little arch. And then inhale and lengthen. Exhale and round. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, 90. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, arch and tap. And then last one. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, 90. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bend and tap. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Bring your hand down. Step your foot forwards in between the hands. Okay, so just gentle flossing. Grab your blocks if you need, and then keeping the belly on the thigh, lifting out of the hips. We're just gently drawing the hips back and forth. Starting to breathe into the back of that front leg, squaring your hips. So once again, notice how our right hip wants to come forward. So we're thinking about widening through the hip crease, drawing that hip back into its socket. Breathing into the back of that front leg. Okay, ready? Let's come up. So from here, let's make sure the weight's on the kneecap, not the knee joint. Inhale, take the arms up. Extending the arms upwards. Energy going up, opening up through the lungs, shoulders away from the ears, and then exhale, bend your arms into cactus. 3 breaths here. So as we inhale, keep squeezing the glutes, lifting up through the spine, lifting up through the back of the heart, drawing your ribs up. Inhale, squeezing the backs of your shoulder blades. Exhale, rounding, coming forwards. Inhale and arching. Exhale and round. One more. Inhale back up, take the arms back up. Option here to come into prayer hands or make a little pointer or stay with cactus arms. Lifting up through the spine, lift out of the hips. Inhale as you exhale, keep squeezing, drawing the belly into the spine as we open the heart a little bit further. Inhale back up. Roll the shoulders away from the ears. We're bringing the right hand to the hip. So I want you to imagine that you're standing in between two planes of glass. From the front, I look like this, but I'm keeping in between those two planes of glass. And then opening to the side. I'm just feeling that really nice opening through my hip. On the other side, on the left side. Shoulders away from the ear, maybe drawing the eye gaze up. Inhale back up, shoulder away from the ear. Exhale, widen the hips, come back with the hands on either side of that front leg. And then just taking some nice deep breaths here. Hands on blocks or on mat. And keep lengthening out through the spine. And then let's melt forwards for big breaths. So drawing the bum back, stacking the hips back over the knee, and just breathing into the back, breathing into the side of that front hip, breathing into the back of that front leg. Maybe starting to flex the foot as well. As you start to draw the toes back, you feel that stretch extending out through the calf, but we're not pushing into our knee joint. We're sucking the knee up into the quad to straighten if we're working with a straight leg. I'll just keep a little bend in the knee so we're not feeling any pulling. Okay, inhale yourself back up. Walk the hands onto the inside of the foot now, coming into lizard. Heel toe that foot out a little bit. And so we've got that 90 degrees, knees still stacked over the ankle. And then from here, so when we are moving around, just push into the big toe pad of your front leg. So you can ground into the big toe pad, and then as we start to circle, you start to feel that will mobilize your ankle a little bit. Yep, so push into that big toe pad this morning. And then you feel that stability as you mobilize through your hip, your knee, your ankle, drawing your circles. Make sure that the weight is on the back kneecap, not the knee joint, and our core is taking most of the weight so that there's lots of space in the pelvis. Circling in one direction and circling the other way. Becoming a little bit lower if that feels okay. Onto elbows onto your forearms on a block or on the mat. Making sure that that front knee is pointing outwards in line with your toes. Okay, from here come back into center and let's release. Tuck your back toes under, lift the back knee, sway the hips back and forth for a moment. And then bring that knee back to the floor. So wild thing or flip dog. And we'll come to wild thing. So take this front right leg, swivel it around, swivel on the bottom knee, lift out of your shoulder, lift out of the hip. And then get that really nice counter pose here as we stretch out. So all that folding into that front right hip, we're just releasing it now, straightening the right leg and then pushing to the toes of the right foot. Make sure that that bottom shoulder is wrapping around. Breathing into that beautiful stretch, and then as we exhale, hand comes down, knee comes down, inhale and arch, exhale and round, maybe inhale, arch, tuck the toes under, maybe slide the hips back into down dog for your flow, or come through knees, chest and chin. So you ready? A little flow here, exhaling down, inhale through, opening up through the front of the body. Rolling the tops of the thighs in towards each other. Exhale, roll the chin into the throat and fold back into down dog. Take some nice deep breaths here. And so keep pushing all the way back into the hips and then widening out across your hip crease. Check in with the hips, notice how they're feeling, lifting up through the, rolling up through the inner thighs, rolling down through the outer hips, so our hips are nice and square. Let's now take so you can come back into tabletop. Otherwise, if you'd like to try this, take the left leg up into our three-legged dog. And then just open your hip out, bend that top knee, and just trace a circle here. So we're just mobilizing the hip. Okay, so extend it back up into a closed hip. Now open that hip. And so from here, see if you can walk, keep that leg straight, and then bring your foot to come back to the front in your lizard position. So this is similar to when we did this knee thing here. So it's kind of like doing this, right? So whether you're so it's just the straight leg, but you're feeling that space in your hip. Okay, and then bring your foot back down to the outside of your hand. So let's come back into lizard. This time we'll come into a bit more of an active lizard. So we're going to lift the back knee now. Come onto your blocks if you need to. And we want to try to get a nice straight line here. So sometimes if the hips are tight, the hips might be quite high up. So I want you to come onto your blocks a little bit lower and see if you can keep the hip crease level. So notice how that front hip wants to come forward. So I want you to keep the hips level and reach your heart center forwards. So you should feel a really nice stretch through that front of the right hip. And as we keep the hips level, that right hip's not, left hip is not, so your right hip is not collapsing. So your left hip is still drawing back into its socket. The front leg is drawing back, but our other hip's not collapsing. And then keep reaching the heart forwards. And then from here, keep reaching the heart forwards. And then feeling like you're reaching the earth apart with your feet while keeping that hip crease level. Maybe you can come a little bit lower down. So you're feeling that the legs are really nice and active here. Okay, come back onto your hands now. And if you're on your back knee, lift the back knee and sway the hips. Otherwise, from here, come back into wild thing, or we're going to flip the dog. So option 1, come back onto the knee, and then this front leg comes around. Otherwise, option 2, we take this leg back up, and then we bend the knee. We look underneath the armpit where we see the toes. On our right supporting foot, we swivel to the knife edge, so we've got a strong but stable balance. And then we bring the other foot all the way around underneath the hip, lift out through the hips, lift out of the bottom shoulder, and stretch out in either wild thing or flip dog. So that front leg comes around. All right, inhale, take that hand and that foot back up. And from here, square the hip, whether you're in tabletop or you're in down dog. Keep the hips square. Come through your flow with the floating leg. So you can look like this, or you can look like this. So try to keep that leg floating and then come through your back bend. Tailbone rolling under, reaching the heart forwards, belly hugs into the spine. Exhale, fall back into down dog. Stretch it out. Now once again, just check in with your hips. So feel, hopefully that should feel like we've got a little bit more space around the hips now. And the pelvis, in the pelvis, and all the bones. Okay, when you're ready, let's do the other side. So we're going to take the other leg up, starting with a closed hip. Feeling that rolling down of the outer hip, lifting through the inner thigh. Hip crease is wide. Now we open that hip up, bend that top knee, and we trace a circle here. So we're just doing that mobilization of that hip, and then we straighten it back out. Okay, so feel that big thigh bone in its socket. Make sure there's space in it as we open the hip. So we're rolling our body, our weight to the side. And then from here, we step that foot forwards and then come into our lizard on the second side. So grab your blocks if you need to underneath your hands. Okay, so let's do this one actively. Let's lift that back knee and then lift the back heel. So notice how your heel might want to kind of roll out. So keep lifting the back heel and then sucking that knee into the thigh and then lifting out of the hips, squaring the hips. So once again, notice how our front leg hip wants to come forward. So we start to square the hips, making that hip a little bit more stable, and keep reaching the heart center forwards. So we can feel and strengthen our lizard here. Keep sucking that back quad up. Maybe coming a little bit lower if that feels okay. We keep reaching that back knee away, the back heel away, and we're reaching the heart center forwards. All right, from here, bring the hands back in, lift the back knees down, lift the back knees, sway the hips back and forth, and come into wild thing or flip dog. So option 1, bring that knee back down, front leg swivels around. Otherwise, front leg goes back up, bending that knee, look underneath your armpit, see where your foot's going to land, bring it underneath the hip, and then squeezing the glutes, lifting the hips, and opening up. Stretching out here. Inhale, take the arm up. Exhale, bring yourself back. Keep that foot floating. So from your wild thing, so if you look like this, then we're coming back around. Try to keep that foot floating, so you're extending out through that hip, and then come through your float. And opening the heart. Exhale, roll back into down dog. Stretching out here in your down dog. Take a few breaths. So spread the fingers nice and wide, grounding into the roots of the fingers. Feeling that contact of all the fingertips, the roots of your fingers. Grounding into the earth, drawing up the energy up through the palms, of the hands, up through the arms, through your back. Drawing the lower ribs back up towards the hips, and then sending the breath and energy back down through the backs of the legs. Okay, so let's now play with two-legged cat or two-legged dog. So option 1 is to come back down onto tabletop like we did at the start, and we're doing same side hand and foot balance. Okay, so we can do that as option 1. Option 2 is you come back into down dog, you take your foot back, and with a square hip, we start to bring the other hand out in line with the foot. Okay, and then you can swap sides. So you take the foot first, so you're nice and square, and then once you're square, you take the other hand up. So a lot of this is in your hips. Basically, your hips need to be very square to hold the shape. All right, so have a play, three-legged cat or three-legged dog. Just take a couple of breaths on each side. And then once you've found your balance, you can, so sometimes like if I'm in this position here, if I kind of roll onto my side, I'm very balanced. So now I want to keep everything active and try to square it a little bit more. So we're rolling it down, but you're shifting the weight more towards the midline, which is where your hand and foot are, but you're winding that hip downwards, so you're squaring that hip, because otherwise everything opens up. Okay, do the second side if you haven't already. So that's awesome. And so we can just practice a little bit every day, and then we'll get there. Okay, and if you so yeah, and it's the same concept here if we're doing it in three-legged dog. So the hip is what's keeping my body very square, and then once my hand goes back, so this hip here holding everything in, this hip is rolling in. The moment I open this hip, my whole body is going to fall out of alignment. So it's that rolling of the, keeping that hip crease wide, rolling the outer thighs down and the inner thigh up. Okay, let's come back into tabletop. Do a little bit of free form movement. Let's come into tiger pose now. So from here, let's take the, we started with the left leg, right hand. And from here, we're just going to reach around, hold your foot. If it's not accessible, come onto your belly and do opposite side. If that's not accessible, come onto your belly and do same side. Okay, so come into half bow if you're not able to reach this morning in tiger pose. So we're going left foot, right hand to reach around, grab your foot. And then from here, flexing that foot. So push out through your inner ankle, Inhale, and then as you exhale, squeeze your glutes, lift your back knee, lift up through the heart, and then push your foot into your hand. So you inhale, breathing into the front of the body. As you exhale, squeeze and lift a little bit higher. One more breath. I guess the sky. Exhale, release. Hand comes down, knee comes down. Inhale, arch. Exhale, curl, and then roll back into down child's pose. Stack your fists and rest your forehead onto the fist. Take a couple of breaths here. Lengthening the spine, relax the shoulders, breathing into the body. When you're ready, take the hands out, stretch it out in open child, and then roll back into tabletop. Let's do the second side. So from here, take your hand out, take your foot out, opposite side. So taking the right leg now and left hand, reach around, grab your foot. Come onto the mat if you need to. Okay, when you're ready, let's inhale, and as you exhale, we're squeezing the glutes, lift the back knee, pushing your foot into the hands, onto the hand. Inhale, as you exhale, squeeze and lift a little bit more. Maybe drawing the, lifting up through the heart and drawing the eye gaze to the sky. Last one here. And then when you're ready, exhale, release. And then so you can arch, round, and then come back into resting child. Stacking the fists on top and resting the forehead onto the fists. So our head and heart is at the same height. Just taking a couple of nice deep breaths here. Okay, when you're ready, let's release, bring the hands out. We're going to come into bow pose. So come back into a nice little stretch in your child's pose, and then when you're ready, roll yourself up. You have an option to come through a flow or just come onto your belly. So if it feels nice, maybe stretch out into another down dog. And then we'll roll forwards into your plank and come through plank or knees, chest and chin as we lower ourselves all the way down onto our mat. Okay, untuck your toes. All right, so half or full bow. So this should be a little bit easier than the other one. So you can either do it twice, one on each side, or do the full bow. Okay, so option one, take your right hand out, take your left foot, reach and hold the top of your foot and maybe flex the foot here. Okay, or maybe hold the ankle and flex the foot. All right, so option one is you're lifting the hand and knee and you're lifting the foot. Okay, so option two is you're taking your other hand and reaching around. Now notice how our knees kind of want to roll out. So from here, I want you to lengthen up through the spine and then roll the tops of your thighs in towards each other. Feel like your knees are squeezing in towards each other. So you're feeling that space through your lower back. Okay, inhale, lengthen. As you exhale now, we're going to start to squeeze the glutes, lift your knees, and then push your feet into your hands as you lift up through the heart. If it's okay, you can draw your eye gaze up. And then gently start to rock back and forth a little bit along your abdomen. Squeeze through the backs of your shoulder blades. Keep squeezing your knees in towards each other. All right, exhale, release. Release the hands, release the feet. Turn your head to one side and just gently rest on your cheek. Take a few breaths here. And flexing that foot as well, if you can. It's allowing the breath and the energy to return to normal. Okay, when you're ready, let's come back up. Second side, we're doing the same thing. So you're going to bend your right knee this time, holding onto the right top of the foot or the ankle. And squaring up. And so Sheila, you extend the other hand and the other foot, and then you squeeze and you lift. Okay. So grab your, make sure you've got your bind here. Okay, so once again, notice how our knees want to flare out. So we want to start rolling the thighs inwards towards each other, lifting the knees, squeezing through the glutes, squeezing through the backs of your shoulder blade, and then lifting up through the heart if it feels accessible. Maybe starting to rock a little bit. Make sure there's no pinching through the bones in the back, but you're feeling a nice squeeze through the kidneys, the adrenals, and that massaging through the abdomen. All right, let's release. Release the hands. Release your bind, turn your head to the other side, and just rest your hands by your hips. And just breathing in here. Okay. All right, when you're ready, let's bring the hands. So just one more if you like, maybe grab the feet and then, so let's come up. And last one here, Sheila, you can just come in, you can come into locust if you like. So without having to grab the feet, you can lengthen up and just squeeze the glutes, squeezing back. Diane, if you like, you can come back into bow or maybe take hold of your feet and see if you can try to now let the knees roll in, feet flare out, and you're trying to push your feet onto the outside of your hips. So you're feeling a nice stretch through the quads. And Sheila, you're just working on back strength here as you keep your eye gaze towards the floor. All right, let's release. And then turn your head to the side for a moment. Take a couple of breaths. You can relax the hands or have them resting wherever is comfortable. Okay, let's come back up through either baby cobra, sphinx, or up dog, and then exhale, roll back into down dog. Stretch your back out here. And just shake your head from side to side, nod it up and down. And then when you're ready, come back down onto your knees. We're just going to do a little twist and then option for legs up the wall or shoulder stand. Okay, so let's come into a nice little twist. So let's take the right leg forwards, bring your left foot over the top, toes up, toes are on the ground, toes are pointing forwards, and see if you can ground through the knife, through the big toe pad of your foot. Okay, so this is option one, keeping the hips square. So sometimes when this foot's kind of floppy, if you notice how your hip will be everywhere. If you flex that foot, even if the hamstring is tight, by keeping a little bend in the knee, the moment that leg is really active, you can feel how the hips are really nice and square. So I want you to activate the straight leg, whether or not it is fully straight. So right now my knee is quite bent, and that's giving me a lot of height. So if your hamstring is very tight, that if you straighten it all out, you feel like this, keep the knee bent, but we're keeping that focus on that nice square hip. All right, let's lengthen the spine as we inhale. As you exhale, hug the belly in, bring your left hand behind, hug that knee into the thigh first to start, and then keep widening out through the hip crease as you inhale, lengthen the spine. As you exhale, keep widening the hip crease and hugging that knee or thigh a little bit closer in to deepen into your twist. Keep pushing into the big toe pad of your left foot. And as you exhale, keep hugging the belly in, deepening the twist. Like maybe taking the hand onto the outside of the knee or thigh to push like a little lever. All right, belly hugs in. Inhale back to center. Exhale, second side. So same thing, just an open twist. Keep the spine long. So bend your straight leg if you need to make your spine nice and tall. So if you notice that If it's tight in the back and the hamstrings, if you straighten the leg, if your back's like this, then by bending the knee, that's going to give you that length through your spine to twist. Belly hugs in, inhale back to center. Release the legs, give them a little shake out in the hip sockets, windscreen wipers with the feet. Bend the knees and then drop the knees from side to side. All right, let's do the second side. So take your other leg out and then bring the foot over the top. So once again, think about widening out through the hip crease and then keeping that hip nice and square. Okay, so that leg is only as straight as is comfortable, but we want to think about the hips being nice and anchored, the spine being nice and tall. Inhale as we exhale, belly hugs in. So yeah, you can take the arm on the outside straight away. Otherwise, sometimes if it's tight, it might feel a little bit more relaxing just to hug that knee in, because you'll also get that stretch perhaps through the glutes on the right side. Hug the belly into the spine, and as you exhale, deepening the twist, twisting from the ribs. And again, it feels good after you deepen. And take your hand onto the outside of the knee or thigh. Go to the second side. Inhale. Take the arms. Exhale, second side. Keep the belly hugging into the spine. When you're ready, let's inhale back to center. Release the legs, give them a little shake out in the hip sockets, windscreen wipers with the feet. Bend the knees and then just drawing the knees from one side to the other. Okay, so finish off today with rabbit, shoulder stand, or legs up the wall. So option one is just bring your hip next to the wall and then just swivel yourself up so you're getting a nice little inversion. Otherwise, you can come into rabbit pose just to open and counter the back and counteract all the back bending we've been doing. So you can roll the chin to the throat, hands holding the sides of the head, and rolling down till the crown of the head is on the floor. And then as you exhale, you lift the hips up. So I'm very tight in the shoulders today, so that's the other option. Otherwise, you can come into your shoulder stand. So making sure you have space all around you. Once you're in your shoulder stand, don't move your head. All right, so I'll start like this with your shoulders away from the ears, and then make a little round ball as you roll back. Come onto the back of your onto your shoulders, and then you can just allow the feet to melt down. Otherwise, from here, maybe starting to come a little bit higher up, and then maybe extending the feet up. Okay, if your shoulders are very tight, maybe it might be a nicer option just to come into plow or have your legs up the wall. My shoulders are super tight this morning. To come out of the shape, we bring the feet back, we bring the hands down, and we roll ourselves back down and come into Shavasana. All right, so find your option that feels good for your body this morning, and then just breathing into it. If you're in your shoulder stand, just keep rolling the chin in towards the throat and zipping up through your legs and extending the toes up back towards the sky. Using the hands to support, maybe starting to walk, lift up through the hips and walking the hands and the elbows a little closer in towards each other at the back. So getting higher on the shoulders. Making sure the weight is on the shoulders, not on the neck and throat. And if you're in your shoulder stand, maybe allow the feet to melt back over the head and plow. And then maybe taking the hands and interlacing your fingers together to get a little bit of a squeeze through the shoulders. Okay, when you're ready, bring the hands back down and roll yourself back down one vertebra at a time. Come all the way down. Release the legs, extend the legs out, give them a little shake out in the hip sockets, little windscreen wipers, maybe a little shimmy through the body. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here in Shavasana first. Just allowing the front of the body just to flood with fresh oxygen and energy. And then if you came from a shoulder stand or a plow position, option just to finish with a supported fish pose. So just an option here if you want to relax in Shavasana for a little bit longer. Sometimes if your shoulders are very tight, you might just want to relax in Shavasana for a little bit first. Otherwise, if you like, you can just start to walk the hands in, lift up through the heart, and just bring the hands behind you, coming up onto your forearms, and then bring the toes together, point your toes and push out through the toes, and then lifting up. So your hips are on the floor and you're lifting up through the back of your heart center, imagining a silver cord at your sternum. As you inhale, imagine that silver cord is just being pulled up to the center of the universe. And as you exhale, you're lengthening up and allowing the crown of the head to melt, lengthening up through your spine and allowing the crown of the head to melt down towards the mat. Keeping the tip of your tongue on the roof of the mouth behind your two front teeth, and just really lifting up through the sternum, breathing into the front of the throat. Breathing through the back of the shoulder blades. And then when you're ready, engage your head, lift the head, release the hands, and roll yourself all the way back down for final Shavasana. Make any adjustments that you need. Grab a blanket or a jumper, a pair of socks. And then just relaxing down. Feet just a little bit wider than hip width. Let the feet melt out to the side so your hips can relax. It's nice and long and tall. Shoulders are relaxed away from the ears. Back of the neck is long. And tip of the tongue gently resting on the roof of the mouth behind the two front teeth so the energy circuit's connected. Deepening the breath. Observing the breath, observing the energy flow, seeing cell changes, and just breathing into them. Just giving yourself a chance just to rest, restore, rejuvenate, and integrate. And if you're ready to come out, you can just gently bring some movement back in, wiggling fingers and toes, maybe stretching out. If you're watching this as a replay, just take as long as you like. If you like, maybe stay in Shavasana for another 10 minutes or so. Otherwise, if you're ready to come out, maybe just making some gentle movements, whatever feels good. You might want to stretch out or give yourself a hug or hug the knees into the chest or rock from side to side. And then when you're ready, you can very slowly roll onto your preferred side in a nice, nourishing fetal position. And gently push into your top hand, straighten your top leg, and slowly support yourself to come back up into seated. Okay, so just to finish, sit bones even, lengthen the spine, relax the shoulders. Take a couple of nice deep grounding breaths here, just checking in, allowing the breath and the energy to return to normal with the spine tall. And check in with your body, notice how you're feeling, hopefully feeling a little bit more open, a little bit more relaxed than when we first began. When you feel that your breath and energy has returned to normal, and let's gently inhale, bring the hands into prayer at the heart to close, sealing our practice here. Breathing into the heart center. When you're ready, you can leave the eyes open, bowing our heads. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.